Mel and Rowena, you have been married 66 years.
67
years.
And 4 months.
Oh, wow. But who's counting, huh?
But who's counting?
Tell us the story of how you two met.
We met at church.
Yeah.
I had never met him before, and my family had gone to San Bernardino, and my dad and I worked for the Army Air Force there for a brief period of time. And we came back to Fresno on a visit, and I went to the youth meeting that they had in one of the homes one evening, and this girl that was in our group brought this young man, and I said, who's that Betty has? Oh, that's her boyfriend, Mel. And that's the first I saw. Didn't think anything of it. But she kept bringing him to our youth meetings, and then we moved back to Fresno after about 6 months, and we were both in the choir, and that's how we met.
And that's how I became interested in her. I was interested in taking out somebody that was older than me, and I found out after I was married, I was older than her.
So tell us how you got engaged and married.
It was at the Yuma Lake the conference, and it was over Labor Day, and I was ahead of that, actually interested in her. And I looked at her and I asked her if she would marry me, thinking that she would stay, oh yeah, but her answer was, but her answer ended up okay.
Have you gone together or known each other?
Well, I'll get to tell this. There was an interim in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, almost a year.
Yeah.
He had broken up with Betty, and
somebody else.
he invited me one night to go Christmas caroling with the group, just so he could show Betty that he could have another date. But we started going together, and then we broke up because he informed me that he and Betty were getting back together. And I realized that I really loved him at that point.
You
but
did?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I didn't. I know. And it really broke my heart. But okay, fine. There's another guy coming along, so forget you. But then he broke up with Betty and decided to come back to me.
No, it was after a
well, that's what I was just getting. A group of we girls went out to dinner, and the church softball team was playing that night. So after dinner, we said we would like to go to the game. Well, the girl that had the car had to get her car back so her dad could have it. He had to go to work. So she dropped us off, and then her dad brought her back as he went to work. And we knew somebody would take us home. We weren't worried about that. Well, of course, he decided to volunteer to take the girls home.
Take them all.
Yeah. So he put 3 in the back seat.
Now,
And
tell it exactly how it happened.
and he says he wanted me in the center of the front seat and Virginia on the door side. Well, I was going to show him. I pushed Virginia in the middle, and I got on the door side.
So then I got smart and I took them all home but her.
She went home last.
She went home. Right.
And I think I remember you stole a kiss that night, didn't
No,
you?
it was the following
He
evening.
cried that night, and I wouldn't agree.
Okay, now tell them about the following night.
The next night he came to the door, and I opened the door,
And I grabbed
and he
her
grabbed her
and kissed her.
and kissed
And
her.
I said, that's for last night.
Right.
He forced his affections upon you.
He did.
Almost.
Originally planned,
Oh, yeah. First.
it was Labor Day when he asked me, and we planned to get married the following June.
Right.
So then, couple of weeks later, no, it wasn't even that.
It
was
wasn't
just
that long.
a few days later. Well, let's make it February. And
No, it was the April. And then it was the
we kept moving it up. And then finally, and I told my parents, and they were not happy. So we decided, okay, we'll get our license and just get married right away. And my mother informed me that they would not go to the church to the wedding. So we said, well, we won't have a church wedding. So we were at my brother and sister-in-law's home. We were talking about it, and we said, let's get married tonight. We have our license, we can get married. So we went over to the pastor, and I think you heard that story. He was just getting ready for bed, and we...
And in the evening.
Yeah. So he insisted that he put his suit on to perform our ceremony. And I went to college. We were going to college with 2 of his children. And they were standing back in the kitchen with the swinging door, and they were peeking through.
They had their actually
Yeah.
heads out.
And watching the ceremony. So the next morning, I went to college, and my locker was all decorated with "Just Married" all over it. I had exam the next morning, and it was in music, and I can't remember now just what the subject was, but anyway, I didn't fare so well on the exam as I would ordinarily do. And so a day or so later, the teacher said, I don't know what happened. This is not your usual grade. I got a C, and I usually got A's. And I said, well, to tell you the truth, I was married the night before she took the test in Florida.
Said anybody that would come in after the marriage should have an A.
That's good. So how has God worked in your marriage?
So many ways.
Yeah.
Like Mel said, the first 10 years of our marriage would have been, it was stormy enough, but it would have been impossible if we hadn't both known the Lord. But He has seen us through so many events. On our first wedding anniversary, my dad died, and I couldn't go back to his funeral. We were at Viola's at the time.
The Viola.
And then the birth and loss of our son. That was something that was just really very hard to comprehend, but the Lord saw us through it, and the Lord gave me peace when it just happened. The church we were attending, a missionary lady was on leave, and she came to visit me in the hospital, and she made a statement that just eased my agony. She said, "Rowena, you were more of a mother than you could ever be after that child was born. That child depended upon you while it was in your womb. The minute it's out of the womb, anyone can mother it. But you were the only one who could give it life." And it just made me feel better. It was something that the Lord put on my heart. And to this day, I feel the same about ladies that lose their child. In the adoption of our two children, there were times that we didn't think we'd even be able to adopt. The agency gave us a terrible time when we were first trying to adopt.
Because I went in and I asked them, "How come you haven't been stalling this?" And the answer was, "Because I stuttered." And I looked at them and I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And they said, "No, we don't think that I would make a good plot or something." I couldn't understand.
They even made him go through psychological testing.
It was
very difficult in those days to adopt. And then when we adopted privately, we had to go through the same agency, and we just glided through it. I think the Lord planned this too.
Yeah.
We had a woman that other people told us later that she was the most difficult caseworker to work with. She was absolutely precious with us. And then again, he saw us through the death of our adopted son and the agony of going through drug problems. And
He's carried you through. What would you tell a young couple starting out? What advice would you give them?
First of all, to base their marriage on the Lord.
Exactly. That's number one.
To draw close to Him, and you'll draw close to each other. Secondly, it's not all take, it's got to be give. It's not all give, it's got to be take also.
Understand.
You have to meet a happy balance.
And it doesn't happen easily. You've got to make an effort.
Yes, you must work at your marriage.
It doesn't just happen.
It doesn't just happen.
67 years and 4 months. Congratulations, Mel and Rowena Kerber. Yay!